The vampire king knelt in a dirty alleyway, cradling a dying woman in his arms, and thought, "This is exactly why I stopped doing good deeds." Blood stained her waitress uniform. Her pulse was fading. And the worst part? She smelled like French fries and disappointment, which, honestly, was his exact vibe right now. "Don't die on me," he muttered, checking for witnesses. "I just had this jacket dry cleaned." Her eyes fluttered open. "Are you a really pale Uber driver?" Yeah, this was going to be a long night. But to understand how the most powerful vampire in North America ended up playing trauma surgeon in an alley behind a Denny's, we need to go back. Back to 3 hours earlier, when Seth Powers made the catastrophic decision to leave his penthouse and interact with the outside world. Seth Powers had been a vampire for 847 years, which meant he'd seen some things. The Black Plague, the fall of Rome, the entire Twilight franchise. That last one still gave him nightmares. He'd built an empire that spanned continents, commanded a legion of immortal warriors, and owned more real estate than God. He was powerful, feared, and completely, soul-crushingly bored. "My lord," his assistant, Trevor, a nervous vampire who looked like he'd been turned during a Warped Tour concert in 2004, stood in the doorway of Seth's office. "The council meeting starts in 20 minutes. Seth stared at the ceiling of his penthouse office, contemplating eternity. "Tell them I have vampire business." "You are the vampire business." "Tell them I'm dead." "Sir, you're already—" "Trevor!" Trevor scurried away, and Seth returned to his favorite hobby, feeling ancient and melodramatic. 8 centuries of existence, and what did he have to show for it? Money he couldn't spend fast enough, power he didn't want, and an immortal life that felt exactly like being stuck in traffic forever. His phone buzzed. A text from the council. "If you miss another meeting, we're revoking your Costco membership." Those petty bastards knew exactly where to hit him. Seth grabbed his jacket, the expensive one, cashmere, because even immortal kings had standards, and headed out. He'd attend the meeting, pretend to care about vampire politics, and maybe stop for blood at his favorite donor clinic. It was supposed to be a routine night. Then he smelled it. Blood. Fresh. Human. And something else. Fear so thick it made the air taste metallic. His car screeched to a halt in the middle of a deserted street. Every instinct screamed at him to keep driving. This wasn't his problem. He had a meeting. He had a Costco membership to protect. But the smell was coming from the alley beside that sad little diner, and against every ounce of his better judgment, Seth got out of the car. That's when he found her. Janet Lynch, 28 years old, waitress at Denny's, lying in a puddle that was definitely not rainwater. Her uniform was torn, her face was bruised, and she was barely breathing. No, no, no. Seth knelt beside her, his $600 shoes splashing in something he refused to identify. "What happened? Who did this?" She coughed weakly. "Robbery. They wanted the register money. I fought back." "That was stupid." "Thanks for the life advice." She coughed again, blood on her lips. "Are you gonna help or critique my decisions?" Despite himself, Seth laughed. This woman was dying, and she was roasting him. "I'm going to help, but I need you to stay conscious. Can you do that?" "Can you stop talking like a vampire from a CW show?" Seth blinked. "How did you— pale skin, expensive coat, dramatic entrance?" She wheezed. "Either vampire or really committed goth." This woman was absolutely delirious, or possibly the most perceptive human he'd ever met. Either way, she was dying, and Seth had exactly 3 options. Let her die and go to his meeting, call an ambulance and hope she survived, or do the one thing he'd sworn never to do again after the incident in 1823. Turn her. "Listen to me very carefully," Seth said, his voice dropping to that commanding tone that made other vampires tremble. "I can save you, but it's going to cost you everything. Your human life, your mortality, your ability to enjoy garlic bread. Lactose intolerant, anyway. That's not... Never mind. Do you want to live?" Janet's eyes focused on him with surprising clarity. "Will I have to sparkle?" "Absolutely not." "Then, fine. Whatever. Just make it not hurt." "I can't promise that." "Then you're the worst vampire ever." Seth bit his wrist, letting his blood well up dark and ancient, and pressed it to her lips. "Drink. And for the record, I'm actually considered quite an excellent vampire. I have a Yelp rating and everything." She drank, and the world shifted. The transformation was supposed to take 3 days. That was the rule. You fed them your blood, they died. They woke up 3 days later craving blood and drama. It was a whole thing. Very predictable. Very manageable. Janet Lynch woke up in 11 minutes. "What?" She sat bolt upright in the back of Seth's car, where he'd frantically driven her after she'd stopped breathing. "What is happening? Why do I feel like I drank 17 Red Bulls? Why can I hear your heartbeat? Wait, do you have a heartbeat?" Seth, who was currently doing 90 in a 45 zone, glanced in the rearview mirror. "You're supposed to be dead for 3 days. I'm supposed to be working a double shift." "You're a vampire now. You don't have shifts. You have eternity." "Eternity? I can't do eternity. I have student loans. I have a cat. I'm supposed to have brunch with my mom on Sunday." She looked down at her blood-stained uniform. "Oh my God, I'm still wearing my work clothes. This is the worst afterlife ever." Seth pulled into the underground garage of his building, contemplating every decision that had led to this moment. Okay, deep breaths. Do I even breathe anymore? It's optional. Listen, the transformation isn't supposed to happen this fast. Something's wrong. We need to get you inside, figure out what... Janet kicked open the car door with supernatural strength, sending it flying off its hinges. Oops! That was a limited edition. I have super strength? She stared at her hands. This is insane. Can I fly? Can I turn into a bat? Oh my God, am I going to live forever looking like I'm having the worst shift of my life? Seth got out of the car, surveying the damage to his vehicle with the exhausted air of a man who'd made a terrible mistake. You're not going to turn into a bat. That's a myth. The super strength is real. The immortality is real. And yes, unfortunately, you're stuck looking exactly as you did when you died, which means... I'm immortal in my work uniform? Janet looked down at her name tag, at the ketchup stain on her collar, at the non-slip shoes she'd bought at Payless. This is my eternal form? We can get you new clothes. I don't want new clothes. I want my life back. Seth pinched the bridge of his nose. 800 years of existence, countless battles, empires built and destroyed, and this was his breaking point. A newly turned vampire having an existential crisis about her work uniform in his parking garage. Janet, I understand you're upset. Upset? I'm dead. I'm dead, and I'm wearing orthopedic shoes, and I can hear the conversations of everyone in this building, and someone on the fourth floor is playing Nickelback. That's Harold. He's going through a divorce. I can hear his thoughts about the divorce. Seth froze. What? He's thinking about how his ex-wife always hated Nickelback, and now he can play it as loud as he wants, and… Janet clutched her head. Make it stop. Make all of it stop. This was bad. This was very bad. New vampires didn't have telepathy. That came later, after centuries of practice, and even then only the most powerful vampires developed it. Seth himself had only mastered it 200 years ago. But this woman, this waitress from Denny's who'd been turned 11 minutes ago, was reading minds like she was scrolling Twitter. We need to get you inside, Seth said, his voice carefully controlled. Now. Why? What's wrong? Besides the everything. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Any of it. The fast transformation, the immediate strength, the telepathy. Janet, I think something went very wrong with your turning. She stared at him, and for the first time since waking up, fear crossed her face. Wrong how? Like, oops, I have an extra toe wrong? Or, I'm going to explode wrong? I don't know, but we need to find out before… The elevator doors opened. Trevor stepped out, took one look at Janet in her blood-stained uniform and Seth's expression, and immediately turned around. I'll just take the stairs. Trevor, get the council on the phone. Now. Sir, they're already upset about the meeting. Tell them I have a situation that supersedes vampire politics. Tell them I need Alessandro. Immediately. Trevor's eyes widened. Alessandro was the oldest vampire in North America, over 2,000 years old, and he only got involved when something was catastrophically wrong. Sir, are you sure? Now, Trevor. As Trevor scurried away, Seth guided Janet toward the elevator. She was shaking now, the adrenaline of the transformation wearing off, reality setting in. I'm scared, she whispered. Seth, who hadn't felt protective of anyone in centuries, found himself wanting to lie, to tell her everything would be fine. Instead, he said, I know, but I'm going to figure this out. I promise. Why? You don't even know me. I'm just some random waitress you found in an alley. You're not random. You're… Seth paused, choosing his words carefully. You're my responsibility now. I turned you. That means I protect you, even from Nickelback-playing divorcees. Despite everything, Janet laughed. You're weird for a vampire king. You're weird for a newly turned vampire having a breakdown about orthopedic shoes. These shoes cost me $60. I worked a full shift for these shoes. I'll buy you better shoes. I don't want better shoes. I want… She stopped, her expression changing. Someone's coming. 3 people. They're in the lobby. One of them is thinking about how this better not take long because he has a Peloton class at 7. Seth cursed under his breath. That's the council. They're early. Are they going to kill me? Not if I can help it. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. The council consisted of 3 vampires who made Seth look young. Lady Vivian, a French aristocrat turned during the Revolution. Marcus, wait, not Marcus. Lord Brighton, an uptight British vampire who'd never gotten over losing the American colonies. And Alessandro, the ancient one, who looked like he'd stepped out of a Renaissance painting and had the personality of a very tired grandfather. They materialized in Seth's penthouse with the kind of dramatic flair that made Janet jump. Did they just teleport? No, Seth said calmly. They took the private elevator. They just like to make an entrance. Seth. Lady Vivian's accent was thick, her expression unreadable. "We heard you created a progeny." "I saved a life." "You violated the turning protocols. There are rules, Seth. You, of all vampires, should respect them." She was dying. "Many humans die. We don't turn them all." Lord Brighton stepped forward, eyeing Janet with distaste. "And this one is irregular." "Irregular?" Janet bristled. "I'm standing right here, and I'm not irregular. I'm having a crisis." Alessandro, who'd been silent until now, moved closer to Janet. His eyes, ancient, knowing, studied her with an intensity that made even Seth uncomfortable. "How long ago was the turning?" 23 minutes, Seth admitted. The room went silent. Lady Vivian's expression shifted from annoyed to concerned. Lord Brighton actually took a step back, and Alessandro smiled. Impossible. And yet, she should be dead, in transition, not standing here conscious and articulate. "I'm also telepathic," Janet offered. "And I broke a car door, and I can hear everything, including the fact that Lady Vivian is thinking about how she should have stayed home and finished her book club novel." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "That's private." "Everything is loud." Alessandro laughed, actually laughed, and it was the sound of centuries of amusement. "Seth, you beautiful disaster. Do you know what you've done? Created a very confused vampire? You've turned a catalyst." The room froze. Even Trevor, who'd been lurking in the corner, made a small squeaking sound. Seth felt his stomach drop. "That's not possible. Catalysts are myths." "So were vampires once." Alessandro circled Janet like she was a fascinating museum exhibit. "Catalysts are born, not made. They're humans with latent supernatural abilities that activate upon turning. They're rare, 1 in every million humans, and they're dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Janet's voice was small. "I'm dangerous?" "Not dangerous, child. Powerful. Your transformation wasn't supposed to be this fast because your body was already primed for it. You were always meant to be supernatural. Seth just activated you early." Seth sat down heavily. "So what does this mean?" "It means," Lord Brighton said coldly, "that she's unstable, unpredictable. She needs to be contained until we understand the extent of her abilities." "Contained?" Janet's eyes flashed. "I'm not a lab rat." "You're a risk." "I'm a person." "You were a person. Now you're—" "That's enough." Seth's voice cut through the argument, and the room fell silent. When the Vampire King spoke with authority, people listened. "Janet stays with me. I'll train her, monitor her, and if there are problems, I'll handle them." "Seth," Vivian said carefully, "you can't possibly—" "She's my responsibility. I turned her. She stays." Alessandro studied them both, then nodded slowly. "Very well. But Seth, if she loses control, if she becomes a threat to the vampire community, you know what must be done." "She won't." "You can't promise that." "I can, and I do." After the council left, with many warning looks and Brighton muttering about colonial rebellion, Janet collapsed onto Seth's obscenely expensive couch. "So, I'm a catalyst. A rare, powerful, potentially dangerous vampire who might need to be executed if I sneeze wrong. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. This is fine." Seth poured himself a drink, blood, type O negative, vintage 2019, and sat across from her. "You're not going to be executed. You can't know that. I can, because I'm going to make sure you learn control." "Why?" She looked at him, really looked at him, and Seth saw the fear beneath the sarcasm. "Why are you helping me? You could have let me die. You could have let the council take me. Why do you care?" Seth was quiet for a long moment. Then, 847 years ago, I was turned against my will. I was scared, alone, and convinced I was a monster. No one helped me. No one taught me. I figured it out alone, and it took decades, and I swore that if I ever turned someone, I'd do better. So this is guilt? This is responsibility, and maybe, he smiled, small and genuine. Maybe you're interesting. You kicked a car door off its hinges and roasted me while actively dying. That takes talent. Janet laughed, exhausted and overwhelmed. I have so many questions. About vampires, about being immortal, about why I drive a limited edition car if I'm supposedly centuries old and should be above material possessions. I was going to ask about the blood drinking thing, but now I'm also curious about the car. I contain multitudes. You contain pretension. Says the woman who just used cool, 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 unironically. They smiled at each other, and something shifted. An understanding, an alliance, maybe even the beginning of something that looked like friendship. Then Janet's stomach growled, loudly, impossibly loudly for someone who was technically dead. Seth raised an eyebrow. That's not normal. Nothing about this is normal. Why am I hungry? Do vampires get hungry? For blood, yes. For food, no. We can't digest. I want a burrito. You're a vampire. I want a burrito! Seth stared at her. You can't eat human food anymore. Watch me. What followed was the most surreal hour of Seth Powers' very long life. Janet Lynch, newly turned vampire and apparent catalyst, consumed. One burrito, extra guac, a large order of fries, a milkshake, and half of Seth's sandwich that he'd ordered purely to prove a point. She didn't get sick. She didn't throw up. She just ate it, like a human. This is impossible, Seth said for the 15th time, watching her demolish a quesadilla. Your face is impossible, Janet mumbled through a mouthful of cheese. This is delicious. I haven't eaten since my shift started, and that was, oh my God, was that today? Did I die today? Technically yesterday. It's past midnight. I died yesterday, became a vampire, and I'm stress-eating Mexican food in a penthouse with a vampire king who drives a fancy car. This is the weirdest Tuesday of my life. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday? Janet dropped her quesadilla. I have therapy on Wednesday. Seth blinked. You have therapy? Yes. Dr. Morrison, 3 p.m. every Wednesday. I can't miss it. She's helping me work through my people-pleasing tendencies. Janet, you're a vampire now. I don't think your therapist can... I'm still going to therapy. I'm immortal now. I'm going to need therapy forever. Despite himself, despite the impossibility of the situation, despite the fact that this woman was turning every rule of vampirism on its head, Seth laughed. Really laughed, for the first time in decades. Okay, he said finally. We'll figure out the therapy situation. And my cat. I have a cat. Her name is Waffles, and she needs to be fed, and... We'll get your cat. And my apartment. I have rent due, and... Janet. Seth reached across and took her hand. It was warm. Vampires weren't supposed to be warm. Breathe. We'll handle everything. One impossibility at a time. She looked down at their joined hands, then back up at him. You're being really nice for an ancient vampire king who I rudely interrupted the eternal existence of. You're being remarkably calm for someone who died yesterday and is now eating cheese she shouldn't be able to digest. I worked at Denny's. I've seen weirder. Doubtful. There was this guy who came in every Thursday and ordered 7 Grand Slams. Just for himself. 7. And he'd eat them all while narrating his meal like he was hosting a cooking show. That's weirder than vampires. Seth found himself smiling again. You're going to be trouble, aren't you? Oh, absolutely. I'm a catalyst. I'm apparently capable of breaking vampire law just by existing. And I refuse to give up burritos. She squeezed his hand. But hey, at least you won't be bored anymore. And looking at this impossible woman, this waitress turned vampire who broke every rule simply by existing, who faced immortality with sarcasm and demanded therapy appointments and Mexican food, Seth realized she was absolutely right. For the first time in 847 years, he wasn't bored at all. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next story. See you later.